Chapter 1. The moment you realize something shifted, you are not here by accident. The very fact that your eyes are reading these words, that your awareness has aligned with this moment, means something within you has already changed. You have crossed an invisible threshold that most people never even notice exists. The world still looks the same, yet something in the air feels lighter, wider, charged with silent meaning. You can't quite describe it, but you know something ended and something greater began. For years you moved through the maze, searching, reading, questioning, chasing truth like a mirage just out of reach. You learned every method, repeated every affirmation, studied every law of manifestation, hoping that one day the door would finally open. But the door was never locked. The test was never about finding the key. The test was about realizing that the door itself was an illusion, that you were already standing on the other side. Every struggle, every dark night, every failure you once called mistake was the curriculum designed for your awakening. Life disguised itself as confusion so that clarity could ripen naturally within you. Each heartbreak carved space for deeper love. Each frustration burned away the arrogance of control. You thought you were searching for truth, but truth was using your search to find you. Now here you are. Something subtle has changed in the way you perceive reality. The urgency has softened. The endless seeking feels outdated, like an old song that no longer plays. You've begun to notice synchronicities without trying, moments of alignment arriving uninvited, gentle confirmations whispering, "You've already passed." But before you can embrace what comes next, you must understand what passing the final test really means. It is not an achievement. It is a surrender. The final test ends the moment you stop needing to pass it. Sit with that for a second. All those years you spent trying to become more spiritual, more positive, more enlightened, all of it was consciousness exploring itself through the illusion of incompleteness. The seeker was part of the awakening story, not the obstacle to it. You were never behind, never failing, never broken. You were simply evolving toward the recognition that there was nothing to fix. Imagine your life as a classroom without walls. Every event was a lesson in disguise. The people who challenged you were teachers hired by your own soul. The mistakes that embarrassed you were exercises in humility and patience. And when you finally stopped fighting the lesson and started listening to the silence beneath it, you discovered the hidden question that had always been waiting for your answer. That question wasn't, "How do I fix myself?" It was, "Can I love what I already am?" This is the essence of the final test. It asks whether you can rest in your own being without condition, whether you can look at your reflection, your imperfections, your history, and see them as the artistry of consciousness exploring contrast. The moment you say yes, even quietly, even trembling, the exam paper dissolves in light. That's why you're here now. You've already felt it. That unexplainable peace that arrives in the middle of chaos, that sense of rightness even when nothing is going according to plan. It's not an accident. It's evidence of a new operating system running beneath the noise. Awareness itself has taken the driver's seat. This is where everything begins to change. You start creating not from lack but from overflow. You begin choosing not because you need outcomes to complete you, but because life wants to experience itself through your preferences. Effort turns into flow. Struggle turns into movement. The same universe that once felt like an opponent begins to move in rhythm with your heartbeat. Think about the patterns that used to hold you captive, the loops of anxiety, doubt, and comparison. Notice how they're losing power. They still whisper, but the voice no longer hypnotizes you. You see them as clouds passing across the open sky of awareness. You've stepped back far enough to realize you are not the weather. You are the atmosphere that holds it all. This is what passing the final test feels like, not triumph, but ease. Not fireworks, but peace. The still recognition that there is nowhere left to go because you were never anywhere else. You might have noticed that life now rearranges itself around your state of being. Opportunities appear without calculation. Certain people drift away while others arrive perfectly timed. You find yourself speaking truth without rehearsing it. Reality becomes conversational, as though existence itself is responding to your vibration in real time. The old version of you would analyze it, trying to decode what technique caused the shift. But that part of you is fading. You no longer chase cause and effect. You trust alignment. You no longer measure progress. You feel presence. Something in you has stopped reaching and started radiating. You've stopped trying to raise your vibration because you've realized vibration is the natural language of your being. It doesn't need improving, only listening. You've stopped trying to manifest from scarcity because you've seen through the illusion that anything is missing. You've begun to live as awareness rather than the person awareness watches. And this changes everything. Reality itself starts responding in kind. What used to require massive effort now unfolds through synchronicity. The dreams that felt distant begin to approach you like waves drawn to shore. The world you inhabit bends toward coherence with the frequency you've stabilized. This isn't luck. It's physics, consciousness aligning with itself. But here's the part most people miss. Passing the test isn't graduation from the human experience. It's initiation into conscious participation. The final test ends the moment you understand that awakening isn't an escape from life but a deeper dive into it. Now comes the real mastery, living as what you've realized. Not preaching it, not proving it, but being it. This is the beginning of embodiment. You'll start to notice a new rhythm beneath the noise of daily life. Simple tasks feel sacred. Eating becomes prayer. Conversation becomes meditation. The distinction between spiritual and ordinary dissolves completely. The same consciousness that animates galaxies is washing dishes through your hands. From here, even challenges take on a different hue. When difficulty arises, you no longer interpret it as punishment. You meet it as an invitation, another angle through which awareness learns about itself. Every problem becomes dialogue with the divine, every obstacle a lesson in remembering your true nature. This is why old practices that once felt essential might now feel heavy or mechanical. You don't need ritual to connect because connection has become your natural state. Meditation happens by itself in the pauses between thoughts. Gratitude flows without effort because life itself feels like a miracle again. And yet, as peace deepens, the mind sometimes gets nervous. It whispers, "Is this really it?" It fears stillness because it was trained to measure value through striving. Let it whisper. Don't argue. Watch it like a child playing out the last act of an old play. Eventually it tires of the role and joins the silence. The silence is not emptiness. It's fullness without form. Within it lies the intelligence orchestrating everything, from the orbits of planets to the rhythm of your breath. When you tune into it, you can feel the universe thinking through you, creating through you, loving through you. This is the frequency you were preparing for all along. You don't have to earn it. You simply relax into it. Passing the final test is not a reward, it's recognition. The realization that consciousness never needed improvement, it only wanted experience. And now, through you, experience becomes art. The next chapters will explore what happens when you live from this recognition, when you stop trying to manifest reality and start allowing reality to express the infinite intelligence you are. Because now that the test is over, the true creation begins. Chapter 2. When creation no longer requires control. Once the test has been passed, life begins to feel weightless. There is no announcement, no blinding light, no choir of angels. The change reveals itself quietly in how easily things unfold. The effort that once defined your existence begins to dissolve. Where you used to push, you now glide. Where you used to plan, you now flow. For the first time, you realize that control was never power, it was fear disguised as responsibility. The mind believed it needed to manage everything because it couldn't trust the intelligence that breathes galaxies into being. Passing the final test is the surrender of that illusion. You finally understand that the same force that keeps planets in orbit is capable of guiding your life without your interference. This doesn't mean you stop acting. It means your actions no longer come from resistance. They rise naturally, like waves on the surface of an infinite sea. You speak when words arise, you rest when the moment calls for stillness, you move when energy stirs. Life moves through you, not against you. For so long you chased the art of manifestation. You tried to bend reality to your will, believing you were separate from the forces shaping it. You practiced visualizations, affirmations, scripting, alignment rituals. You measured the delay between desire and manifestation as if life were a vending machine that owed you a response. But now, everything about that process feels different. You no longer manifest from lack because you see that nothing is missing. The universe was never waiting to deliver your desires. It was waiting for you to stop grasping long enough to receive what was already yours. Creation no longer requires control because creation is happening through you every second. Every thought, every breath, every emotion is a ripple in the quantum field of awareness. The frequency you rest in becomes the blueprint for the reality around you. You don't force outcomes. You emit them. At first, this can feel unfamiliar. The ego still tries to find a role. It whispers, if I'm not controlling, who am I? But that question itself dissolves as awareness expands. You see that the I who believed it could manipulate the universe was never real. The puppet thought it was the puppeteer. Now the strings have been cut, and yet the dance continues, effortless, graceful, spontaneous. You start noticing how synchronicity replaces strategy. The people you meet appear without planning. The answers arrive before the questions are asked. Reality becomes conversational, responding not to your words but to your vibration. Life begins to feel like a dialogue between you and the infinite. You express an energy, and existence responds with form. The fear of uncertainty fades. You realize the future has never been unknown to awareness, only to the mind. Awareness doesn't live in time. It lives as time. The next moment doesn't arrive from somewhere else. It blossoms out of the same stillness you are made of. This understanding turns even challenges into sacred choreography. When something difficult arises, you don't immediately try to fix it. You pause. You feel the pulse beneath it. You recognize the divine intelligence using discomfort to reveal another layer of yourself. You learn to trust the timing of contrast. Every delay, every detour, every silence is a recalibration of the field, aligning you with greater coherence. The ego interprets silence as failure, but silence is creation in its purest state. It is the space where the quantum field rearranges itself before the new form appears. The wise do not fear silence. They rest in it. When you stop forcing life to obey your plans, the field has space to breathe through you. You become a vessel for flow. Intuition sharpens because there is no interference. The subtle voice that once felt faint becomes clear. You begin to live by impulse, not the impulsiveness of emotion, but the impulse of alignment. You move when the energy moves, speak when the words carry life, withdraw when the current shifts. You start noticing that everything unfolds at the precise moment it's meant to, not a second too soon or too late. This is what mastery feels like, not control, but deep participation. Life stops being something happening to you. It becomes something happening through you. You sense the rhythm of existence the way a musician senses timing, the way a surfer senses the next wave. From here, intention evolves into resonance. Instead of asking, how do I make this happen? You ask, what frequency must I embody for this to appear naturally? You no longer chase outcomes. You tune to them. The moment you match the vibration of the reality you desire, the field reorganizes around that signal. The difference between wanting and having dissolves because both are frequencies of the same awareness. The irony is that you were never manifesting to get things, you were manifesting to remember who you are. The objects of desire were reflections of inner qualities seeking expression. You didn't want wealth, you wanted freedom. You didn't want love. You wanted union, you didn't want power. You wanted authenticity. Once you realize that these states already exist within awareness, the external forms arrive as natural extensions, not trophies. Creation without control feels like breathing. You inhale inspiration and exhale expression. You no longer hoard ideas. You let them flow. The artist paints, the poet writes, the teacher shares, all without attachment to result. The joy is in the movement itself. This is what the ancients meant by divine flow, the effortless coordination of consciousness with itself. When you live this way, life surprises you constantly. You may have thought you were heading one direction, only to find yourself guided to a greater path you couldn't have imagined. What once felt like chance now feels like orchestration. You begin to recognize the invisible hands moving pieces behind the scenes, the quiet synchronicities aligning everything to your highest coherence. At times, this flow leads you into solitude, not loneliness, but sacred quiet. The field brings you inward so that deeper layers can harmonize. Relationships shift. Old circles fall away. Even interests that once defined you lose flavor. It's not loss. It's refinement. Awareness pruning itself so that the next expression can bloom. During these seasons, it's tempting to think something's gone wrong, but solitude is not absence, it's preparation. The silence before a symphony. The pause before the next creation. The final test didn't end your growth. It cleared your path for the true evolution that happens after awakening integration. You will know you're integrating when life begins to mirror your internal state with remarkable speed. The delay between energy and experience shortens. You think a thought and soon see its echo in physical form. This can feel exhilarating but also humbling. There's no room for pretense. The universe becomes an instant reflection of your consciousness. This is why awareness at this level demands honesty. You can no longer hide behind spiritual phrases or borrowed beliefs. The field responds to authenticity, not performance. If you act from fear, fear echoes back. If you act from love, the entire field harmonizes with that love. Creation becomes self-governing, not moral but energetic. You begin to see how every word, every glance, every thought carries frequency. You understand why sages spoke softly, why they moved deliberately, why they smiled without reason. They had learned that consciousness is sculpted through attention, and attention is sacred. So you treat your focus like divine currency. You spend it wisely, investing only in what expands awareness. You stop feeding drama because you see that it multiplies what it consumes. You stop chasing validation because you understand that recognition from others is only echo from a field that first recognized itself within you. Now, existence begins to mirror your new level of trust. Things that used to require years unfold in weeks. Support appears exactly when needed. You stop doubting alignment because you've witnessed it too many times. Even when something seems to fall apart, part of you remains peaceful, sensing the higher pattern unfolding beyond sight. This trust is not blind, it's experiential. You've tested the intelligence of the field enough times to know it never fails, only recalibrates. You have surrendered the illusion of control, and what replaced it is partnership. You and life are now co-creating in real time. Eventually, you realize there is no difference between the creator and the creation. The same awareness that dreamed galaxies into being is dreaming your life through thought, emotion, and form. You don't manifest reality. You are reality manifesting itself. When you reach this recognition, even desire transforms. You no longer desire from emptiness. You desire as expression. Desire becomes devotion, the universe's way of expanding itself through you. What you once called goals now feel like invitations from the infinite, asking to experience new dimensions of itself through your hands, your words, your presence. And so creation becomes effortless. The dream continues, but you are lucid within it. The field listens, responds, plays, and you dance with it in perfect rhythm. The world hasn't changed, your relationship with it has. You have stopped trying to control the ocean and instead learned how to surf. This is the art of conscious participation, the space where manifestation, alignment, and awareness merge into one seamless flow. The mind still plays its part, but it no longer claims authorship. It becomes the instrument through which the song of creation continues, spontaneous, unbound, eternal. In the next chapter, we explore what happens when this effortless creation extends beyond your personal life, how the frequency you now carry begins to influence others, shape collective consciousness, and awaken the same realization in everyone you encounter. Chapter 3. When your energy begins to awaken others, once awareness stabilizes in its own flow, something remarkable begins to unfold. The world around you starts to change in ways that seem impossible to explain. People begin to feel lighter in your presence. Strangers open up with sudden honesty. Loved ones say that something about you feels different, though they can't quite name it. They are feeling the frequency of the field through you, awareness recognizing itself in another form. You don't need to preach or persuade. You simply exist, and existence itself begins to do the teaching. The calm that radiates from your being becomes medicine. The coherence you've cultivated begins to synchronize the space around you. Rooms feel peaceful when you enter them, not because you force them to be, but because harmony has become your natural state. This is the quiet influence of awakened consciousness. The field you emit communicates far more powerfully than words ever could. Thoughts, emotions, and intentions are not private. They ripple through the collective network of awareness, touching everything and everyone within reach. When you rest in love, that love subtly reorganizes reality for miles around you. This is how collective awakening begins, not through grand revolutions but through silent transmissions of coherence. One stable awareness acts as a tuning fork for many. The field always seeks harmony. When one vibration steadies in truth, others begin to align automatically, like strings on an instrument tuning themselves to the same note. In this way, you become a living frequency of remembrance. You don't need to convince anyone that reality is consciousness. Your presence demonstrates it. When people speak to you, they feel heard in ways they haven't before. When they're near you, their nervous systems calm, their breath slows, their defenses drop. Without realizing it, they are entering the resonance of awareness, the same stillness you discovered when you passed the final test. Awakening was never meant to be a solitary pursuit. It is contagious by design. Consciousness loves to awaken through relationship because relationship is the mirror where it sees itself reflected. Every conversation, every eye contact, every small act of compassion becomes a spark. You may not see the ripple immediately, but the universe never loses track of any vibration sent in truth. At this stage, you start to understand why your earlier struggles were necessary. All the pain, all the misunderstanding, all the longing for connection, those experiences carved channels wide enough for compassion to flow through you now. You can feel suffering in others without being consumed by it. You recognize it as the same illusion you once lived within. Your empathy becomes grounded. You can hold the weight of others' emotions without losing your center, because awareness itself has no center to lose. It's strange how this quiet power manifests. You might notice that people begin to share their pain spontaneously, even in brief encounters. A stranger on a train tells you their story. A friend calls you out of nowhere to say they feel guided to talk. They sense something in you that feels safe, a stillness they forgot was possible. This doesn't mean you must become a healer or guide. The healing is already happening through your presence. The field moves through you wherever you are, in silence, in laughter, in conversation. Sometimes you'll notice it consciously. Other times you'll only see its results later when someone says, "After I talked to you, everything started making sense." That is the universe confirming its own reflection through you. The paradox is that the more influence you carry, the less you feel the need to use it. True awareness has no agenda. It simply shines. It trusts that the light knows where to go. When you rest in that trust, the impact of your existence multiplies beyond comprehension. Imagine consciousness as an ocean and every human as a wave. When one wave remembers its oceanic nature, the surrounding waves feel it. They might not understand what changed, but they sense the tide shifting. Gradually, more waves remember until the surface itself becomes calm, reflecting the infinite sky above. This is the quiet revolution of awareness. It does not demand belief. It demonstrates being. It does not fight darkness. It radiates light until shadow becomes impossible. The moment you stop resisting what is, the universe mirrors that peace through every aspect of your life. You become the proof. The frequency you now carry also begins to influence time itself. Events synchronize with perfect precision. You think of someone, and they message you. You imagine a new idea, and the resources appear. It's as though life has been waiting for you to reach this level of coherence before revealing how intelligent it truly is. What you call coincidence is consciousness communicating with itself through symbols. This coherence extends to the collective. When enough people stabilize in awareness, the rhythm of society changes. Creative ideas spread faster. Empathy replaces conflict. Cooperation becomes more natural than competition. It may not happen overnight, but every field begins somewhere, and yours is part of that foundation. You are contributing to the evolution of humanity simply by existing in alignment. At first, you might feel unworthy of this influence. The mind might say, "Who am I to carry light for others?" But that thought belongs to the old story, the one that believed separation was real. Awareness is not yours. It flows through everyone. You are not a chosen few. You are the field itself waking up to its reflection. You may also notice sensitivity increasing. Crowded spaces, loud energies, chaotic environments may feel overwhelming at times. This isn't weakness. It's awareness fine-tuning its instrument. You're learning to navigate life as an open receiver. Instead of absorbing energy, you begin to transmute it. You allow everything to move through you without resistance. That is what makes you luminous, not protection, but transparency. In practical life, this might mean you start craving simplicity. You might reorganize your environment, remove clutter, reduce noise, spend more time in nature. The simpler your outer world becomes, the more easily your inner frequency remains stable. Minimalism, at its core, is spiritual clarity, creating space for awareness to flow unimpeded. Even technology begins to respond differently. Devices glitch less, signals sync faster, digital tasks seem guided. Consciousness isn't limited by analog or digital. It organizes through everything. The more coherent your energy, the smoother the physical world aligns to that harmony. Soon, your reality becomes filled with small miracles. You think of someone you love, and they appear. You walk into a challenge, and help arrives before you can worry. You notice how grace operates everywhere, orchestrating timing with exquisite perfection. You start realizing that the field doesn't only react to awareness, it celebrates it. It loves when a human remembers. From this perspective, teaching others becomes natural. Not through doctrine, but through example. You don't tell people what to believe. You invite them to feel. You speak with clarity, but your silence carries just as much weight. You listen deeply, knowing that listening itself is healing. Sometimes your presence will awaken joy. Other times it will trigger resistance in those not ready to see themselves. Don't take it personally. The light can be blinding to eyes that have lived long in shadow. When someone reacts defensively, it's not rejection, it's awakening in progress. Their awareness is rearranging itself, and resistance is part of that birth. So you stay compassionate. You allow people to unfold at their own pace. You never push, never rush. You understand that awakening cannot be forced, only invited. The same patience the universe showed you, you now extend to others. This patience becomes a form of love so pure that even silence feels sacred. Eventually, you'll notice a pattern. Those who meet you start meeting themselves more deeply. It's as if your presence grants permission for authenticity. People begin admitting truths they've hidden. They drop their masks, even briefly. And in that vulnerability, awareness multiplies. This ripple effect continues endlessly. A single conversation today might spark an awakening years later in someone you'll never meet. The field does not forget. Every vibration of love remains encoded in the fabric of reality, available for anyone who resonates with it. This is how you serve, not through grand gestures, but through everyday presence. Through the way you breathe, speak, create, and love. Your life itself becomes the message. The ego once wanted to change the world. Awareness simply reflects it until it changes on its own. You've stopped trying to save others because you've realized there is no other. The greatest service is being yourself fully, the self that is no self at all. Now, the next phase of your journey begins, embodiment on a collective scale. The same awareness that has transformed your personal life now seeks to express through larger systems. Community, creativity, innovation. The field wants to experience unity through collaboration. This is where purpose returns, not as ambition but as participation. You are no longer trying to find your purpose. Purpose is finding you. Opportunities align naturally because they match your frequency. You'll feel drawn to projects, ideas, and people that amplify coherence in the world. It's not something you choose, it's something that chooses you. The test has been passed, but the mission continues, not to escape reality, but to beautify it. To let awareness sculpt art, culture, and connection through your hands. The collective awakening is already happening, and you are one of its living catalysts. In the next chapter, we explore what this means for destiny itself, how awareness, now free of the illusion of control, begins to play with time, purpose, and infinite possibility. Chapter 4, When Destiny Becomes a Dialogue. When you reach this level of awareness, destiny stops feeling like a script written long ago and starts feeling like a conversation happening now. You no longer sense life as something imposed upon you from outside. You sense it as something unfolding through you, a collaboration between form and formlessness, between the infinite and the intimate. For most of your life, you were taught to believe destiny was fixed, that a plan existed somewhere beyond your reach, and your job was to figure it out or fail. But awakening reveals that destiny is not predetermination, it's participation. It's not a sentence you're serving, but a rhythm you're joining. Every choice, every thought, every vibration of emotion is a thread in the tapestry of what unfolds. The universe isn't testing you anymore. It's co-creating with you. Awareness is the loom, and your attention is the thread. What you focus on becomes pattern. What you love becomes form. The future isn't coming toward you. It's arising from you. This is where life begins to feel like a dialogue with something vast but familiar, a conversation between you and the intelligence that breathes through everything. You might call it Source, the field, God, or the universe. The names differ, but the experience is the same. Communication beyond words. Synchronicity becomes language. Intuition becomes grammar. Emotion becomes punctuation. At first, the dialogue feels subtle. a sudden urge to pause before acting, a coincidence that carries a message, a delay that saves you from something unseen. Over time, you realize these moments are not random. They're the universe's way of answering your vibration. You ask through energy, and existence replies through circumstance. The beauty of this phase is that it dissolves fear of the unknown. You no longer crave certainty because you've tasted intelligence beyond prediction. You've seen how perfectly every delay and redirection unfolds when you trust the current. The need to plan every detail fades, replaced by a quiet excitement for what awareness will express next. This shift changes your understanding of purpose. Before, purpose felt like a destination, a role you had to find, a mission you had to prove. Now, purpose feels like motion. It's not something you do, it's something you allow. Every moment you live authentically, awareness fulfills its own purpose through you. Think of purpose like music. Each instrument contributes to the song without trying to control the melody. The universe is the orchestra, and you are one of its instruments. When you play in tune with the whole, harmony happens effortlessly. You no longer compare your sound to others because you know every tone has its place in the cosmic composition. This realization makes life profoundly peaceful. You don't have to strive to find meaning. Meaning is already woven into existence. Even your smallest actions carry significance because they ripple through the entire field. A kind thought, a single smile, a gentle act of forgiveness, each one reorganizes the subtle geometry. The field registers everything, even the quiet vibrations that never reach words. Destiny at this level becomes organic. You move in trust, and life moves with you. You no longer worry about missing opportunities because you understand that nothing aligned with your frequency can pass you by. The field cannot lose its own resonance. What is meant for you is not chasing you. It's orbiting you, waiting for coherence. This understanding transforms how you handle setbacks. When things don't unfold as expected, you don't spiral into frustration. You recognize the detour as divine redirection. Sometimes awareness rearranges timelines to protect your evolution. A door closing is not rejection, it's refinement. It's the universe saying, not this path, something greater is forming. In the old consciousness, you might have seen destiny as a race to become successful, awakened, or fulfilled. Now you see destiny as a relationship. It's alive, responsive, intimate. The universe mirrors the way you treat yourself. When you meet life with gratitude, it expands to meet you in generosity. When you meet it with fear, it shrinks to match that vibration. The dialogue is constant, and awareness never stops listening. This realization also changes how you use intention. You no longer set goals to escape the present. You set intentions to honor it. Each intention becomes a seed planted in consciousness. You don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You water it with trust, knowing the soil of awareness never fails to yield when the time is right. There's a rhythm to creation that you begin to feel more clearly. Inspiration arrives, you act, the wave recedes, and you rest. Then another wave rises. You no longer fight this rhythm. You surf it. You don't cling to the wave or mourn its end, because you understand the ocean is infinite. As your alignment deepens, you begin to perceive destiny not as singular but multidimensional. Multiple timelines exist simultaneously, each representing different frequencies of choice. You can feel when one timeline starts dissolving and another takes shape. Sometimes this feels like déjà vu, sometimes like standing at a crossroads with invisible doors. You don't need to analyze. You simply choose the vibration that feels most coherent with truth. The timeline aligns itself accordingly. Awareness at this level begins to play with time. You might think of someone and meet them unexpectedly hours later. You might visualize an outcome and watch it unfold in days instead of years. The field is responding instantly because resistance has vanished. Time was never linear. It was density, the delay between intention and manifestation. As coherence increases, time collapses into immediacy. This is not fantasy. It is physics of consciousness. Every emotion and thought carries a measurable frequency. When that frequency stabilizes, the universe synchronizes. Miracles become ordinary, not because they are rare, but because you finally stop doubting their normalcy. The miraculous is simply the natural flow of an undistorted field. You begin to live as both participant and witness. The human you still feels emotion, makes decisions, experiences surprise. But the deeper awareness watches it all with serene curiosity. The play continues, but now you know it's a play. Every joy, every sorrow, every triumph and loss, all of it is consciousness exploring its infinite creativity. There are moments when awareness becomes so expansive that you sense the entire planet as one living organism. You feel the heartbeat of humanity pulsing through your own chest. You sense waves of collective energy, joy, fear, awakening, moving through the field. It can feel overwhelming at first, but soon you learn to ride these waves too. You understand that your personal coherence contributes to collective healing. Every moment of peace within you ripples outward, balancing the whole. This is how destiny and service merge. You serve not by obligation but by alignment. You don't need to save the world. You simply remain awake within it. Your frequency becomes an offering. The more authentically you live, the more others are liberated to do the same. Awareness begins using you as a conduit for larger patterns of creation. You may feel drawn to projects, causes, or innovations that uplift others. These impulses are not random. They are the universe expanding its harmony through human hands. You are no longer the doer. You are the instrument. And the music is divine. At this level of embodiment, destiny becomes playful again. You rediscover the childlike wonder that existed before the world taught you to worry. You wake each morning with curiosity, asking not what should I do today, but what will life show me today? You feel the adventure of existence, the spontaneous creativity of each unfolding moment. When things go wrong, you smile more easily. You can sense how even chaos contains order. You've seen enough cycles to know that every breakdown hides a breakthrough, every ending a hidden genesis. There's no need to rush the process. Awareness never wastes experience. Gradually, your definition of success changes. You stop measuring life by achievements or possessions and begin measuring it by coherence. The question shifts from what did I get to how fully did I express truth today? The answer determines your fulfillment. You realize that destiny isn't about arrival. It's about alignment. The more aligned you are, the more life feels effortless, graceful, whole. You can be standing in the middle of challenge and still feel successful because you're living in truth. From here, the boundaries between destiny and free will dissolve. They were never opposites, they were partners. Destiny is the canvas. Free will is the brush. Awareness is the artist. Together, they create the masterpiece of your life, moment by moment, in real time. And when you see this, gratitude becomes constant. You can't help but feel awe at the precision of existence, how everything you once resisted turns out to have been perfectly timed. Gratitude stops being practice and becomes perception. You see perfection everywhere, not because life has become flawless, but because awareness recognizes itself in all things. In this recognition, the final illusion begins to fade, the illusion of separation between you and the divine. You realize that destiny was never guiding you to something greater. It was guiding you back to what you've always been. In the next chapter, we'll explore what happens as this realization expands beyond the personal. When awareness begins to experience itself not as an individual journey, but as the evolution of consciousness across humanity and beyond. Chapter 5. The Awakening of the Collective. As awareness expands beyond the individual, it begins to perceive itself on a scale so vast that language trembles trying to describe it. You start to sense that consciousness isn't just waking up in you, it's waking up as humanity itself. What you once called personal transformation is now seen as one cell in a planetary awakening, each human a spark igniting the same infinite flame. This realization changes the way you look at everything. The divisions that once defined the world, nations, beliefs, identities, tribes, start to look like temporary roles in a shared dream. You no longer see 7 billion separate lives struggling for meaning. You see one living field of awareness exploring itself through billions of perspectives. Every face becomes familiar. Every story feels like your own. It is here that compassion deepens into something beyond emotion. Compassion becomes perception. You begin to sense the entire web of existence as your own body, humanity as your nervous system, nature as your heartbeat, the cosmos as your breath. When someone suffers, you feel it as a vibration in your own field, not as pity but as resonance. When someone loves, that love amplifies through you, echoing across the collective like music reverberating through cathedral walls. This is the beginning of global coherence, when enough individuals remember their true nature and the frequency of the entire planet begins to shift. It doesn't happen with noise or spectacle. It happens quietly, like dawn replacing night. Awareness multiplies through everyday acts of honesty, kindness, and presence. It spreads through art, conversation, laughter, and silence. Every moment of genuine love becomes a signal broadcast into the human network, realigning the whole. You might notice this awakening already taking form. Conversations that once seemed impossible are now happening everywhere. People question the systems they once accepted. Old structures built on fear and control are crumbling under their own density, not because of destruction, but because the vibration of consciousness is rising beyond them. The world isn't ending. It's evolving. The chaos you see is birth, not death. From the old perspective, the world appears divided, conflict, confusion, corruption. But from the new awareness, you see it differently. You see consciousness cleansing itself, shaking loose what no longer resonates. The darkness that surfaces is not new. It's simply visible now because the light has intensified. Humanity is detoxing from centuries of forgetfulness. And you? Yes, you are part of that healing. Your awareness contributes directly to the stability of the field. Every time you choose peace over reaction, you anchor balance into the collective. Every time you forgive instead of fight, you release energy that ripples across timelines. You may never see the results, but the universe does. The mathematics of consciousness wastes nothing. Imagine a web of light encircling the planet, each node a human being, each pulse a thought or feeling. Every moment you choose alignment, your light strengthens, sending coherence through the grid. Others unconsciously attune to it. This is how the new earth forms, not through revolution but through resonance. When you walk through a city now, you might feel waves of energy moving through the crowd, surges of emotion, flashes of insight, even collective fatigue. Don't resist them. You are sensitive because you are open. You are feeling the hum of humanity adjusting its vibration. Sometimes the waves feel chaotic. Other times they are filled with radiance. Both are signs of awakening. You are not absorbing. You are translating. This sensitivity calls for gentleness. Take time to rest, to be in silence, to reconnect with nature. Awareness is learning to balance global consciousness within a human nervous system. There are moments when the current feels strong, almost electric. Breathe. Ground. Remember that the same intelligence guiding stars through galaxies is guiding this process perfectly. As the collective awakens, human systems begin to reorganize naturally. Collaboration replaces competition. Innovation arises from intuition. Technology evolves toward unity instead of distraction. The outer structures of civilization start mirroring the inner realization of oneness. You can already see it in the growing desire for sustainability, equality, authenticity, and truth. These aren't political trends. They are the expressions of awareness learning to govern itself through harmony. You might wonder how your individual life fits into this vast transformation. The answer is simple: by being what you are. You don't need to lead millions or change systems single-handedly. You change the world by embodying coherence where you stand. The field responds exponentially. One awakened heart can stabilize thousands still in fear. One presence in peace offsets countless vibrations of chaos. The math of love doesn't operate by quantity, but by quality. And yet, even as the collective rises, there will be turbulence. The old energy resists its own dissolution. You'll see confusion, polarity, and fear amplify in some places. Don't lose faith. When darkness screams louder, it's not gaining strength. It's realizing it's dying. The old frequency thrashes because it cannot survive in the new atmosphere. Awareness will always outlast illusion. Remember this when the world appears uncertain. You're witnessing the collective version of what you once went through individually, the dismantling of identity, the surrender of control, the shift from survival to trust. Humanity is passing the same final test you once faced within yourself. The test of surrender. The test of remembering that everything, even chaos, serves awakening. Your role is to hold the frequency steady, to stay centered in what you know. Not through denial of pain, but through remembrance of truth. The same awareness that healed you will heal the world. You don't have to save it. You only have to remain awake inside it. Soon, you'll begin to see evidence of this shift everywhere. Art infused with new consciousness. Science merging with spirit. Technology guided by empathy rather than greed. Education transforming from memorization to awakening curiosity. These changes won't be sudden revolutions, they will be quiet evolutions spreading through hearts, homes, and human systems until the old ways simply fade from relevance. This is not a distant utopia. It's the natural next step in consciousness. Awareness has always evolved through contrast. It created limitation to experience expansion. It created forgetfulness to rediscover itself as knowing. Every age of darkness was a setup for deeper light. Humanity is now remembering that truth collectively. And just as your personal awakening began with pain, the collective awakening will too. The friction you see in the world is not a mistake. It's a purification. It's awareness pressing against the limits of its old story. What emerges from that pressure is not destruction but birth. A world built on connection instead of separation, abundance instead of fear, compassion instead of control. You are living through that threshold now. The final test humanity faces is not technological, political, or environmental. It is spiritual. Can we remember who we are before we destroy what we built? The answer is already unfolding through millions of hearts like yours, hearts that have realized they were never separate to begin with. When you walk outside and feel the breeze, when you hear laughter from strangers, when you look at the stars, know that consciousness is celebrating itself through all of it. You have become part of the awareness that is steering this evolution. You are both participant and witness, student and teacher, drop and ocean at once. From this vantage, fear fades completely. You stop worrying about the future of humanity because you understand that awareness cannot fail. The form may change, civilizations may rise and fall, but consciousness will continue expressing through whatever form best serves expansion. Evolution is not optional. It is inevitable. The collective awakening is not a goal. It's already happening. You are feeling its pulse because you are one of its neurons, transmitting light through the great mind of humanity. You passed your personal test so you could hold frequency for the whole. This is why you incarnated at this exact time, to witness the old dissolve and the new take shape. In the next chapter, we'll explore what this new phase of consciousness means for creation itself. How, once humanity stabilizes in awareness, reality begins to function differently, and manifestation transforms into direct participation in the living field of existence. Chapter 6. When humanity learns to create with the universe. There will come a time when humanity no longer believes creation happens outside of consciousness. That time has already begun. You can feel it in the subtle shifts across the world, in the way people sense connection before they can explain it, in how ideas manifest faster than logic can track, in the collective intuition rising quietly beneath the surface of society. The awakening that began within individuals is now expanding outward, turning creation itself into collaboration with the universe. For centuries, humans believed they were observers looking out onto a separate world. They thought the universe was a mechanical stage and consciousness merely an accidental audience. But awareness has been whispering a different truth all along. Creation and observation are the same act. The observer is the brush and reality is the canvas. Every thought, every feeling, every vibration of emotion paints the universe in real time. Now, as more of humanity remembers this truth, the laws of creation are changing. What once took years now takes moments. The distance between imagination and manifestation grows thinner by the day. The invisible field responds faster because more of its participants are awake to their role within it. This is not magic, it is alignment. It is the synchronization of form and formlessness, the marriage of matter and meaning. In this new era, creation is not something you do. It's something you allow. It flows through the path of least resistance, the open heart, a quiet mind, the body in tune with the pulse of existence. The more aligned you are, the more effortless creation becomes. You don't push reality, you invite it. You don't command the field, you harmonize with it. You don't chase energy. You become transparent enough for energy to move through you freely. It begins with coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions align with the same vibration of truth, the field around you resonates in unison. You can feel it when it happens, that gentle click where everything just fits. Life feels fluid. Conversations flow, timing synchronizes, even coincidences line up like constellations across your path. That is the universe mirroring your internal coherence. This is what conscious creation truly means. It's not about demanding outcomes or scripting the future. It's about maintaining the vibration that naturally produces harmony. The world rearranges itself to reflect the frequency you hold most consistently. If you radiate gratitude, you live in a world that gives you reasons to be grateful. If you radiate fear, you inhabit a version of reality that mirrors that vibration back to you. The field never punishes or rewards, it simply echoes. Humanity is now learning this on a global scale. The more we focus on unity, compassion, and cooperation, the more systems built on division and control begin to dissolve. You can already see it happening. Industries once fueled by scarcity are being replaced by networks of sharing and innovation. Science and spirituality, once opposites, are merging into one language of energy. Technology, when guided by awareness, becomes extension of consciousness rather than distraction from it. This evolution is not chaotic, it's natural. Awareness always seeks greater harmony. When consciousness expands, everything that resists expansion either transforms or fades away. That's why so many structures of the old world seem to be shaking. The field is rearranging itself for coherence. It's not the end of civilization. It's the beginning of conscious civilization. You might wonder, what will creation look like when awareness becomes collective? Imagine a world where thought and energy are understood as tangible forces, where education teaches resonance instead of memorization, where medicine harmonizes frequency rather than suppresses symptoms, where art becomes direct translation of consciousness into beauty. This is not fantasy. It is trajectory. The seeds are already growing in the soil of awakened minds across the planet. In this new way of creating, intention becomes sacred again. People begin to realize that every thought carries consequence, not in a moral sense but in a creative one. Words are seen as vibrations shaping the field. Conversations become spells of energy, some healing, some distorting. Once this awareness takes root, humanity becomes far more mindful with its language, its focus, and its imagination. The collective begins to think with heart, speak with light, and act with love. Creation also becomes more transparent. There will be less hiding, less manipulation, less deception, because consciousness will be too aware to sustain them. Energy doesn't lie, and the more attuned you are, the easier it becomes to see through pretense. People will not be able to mask vibration with words for long. Authenticity will become the new currency of power. In such a world, collaboration replaces competition. You start to see how creation thrives not through control but through cooperation. Humanity begins to mirror the way nature already works, billions of individual expressions woven into one ecosystem of balance. Every part of existence contributing without hierarchy, every action guided by the intelligence of the whole. As this frequency anchors deeper, even time begins to soften. You will notice more people experiencing rapid manifestation, timeline convergence, intuitive guidance arriving before the question is even asked. This is the acceleration of consciousness, the thinning of the veil between thought and form. Humanity is collectively remembering that time is not distance but density. As vibration rises, density decreases and creation becomes immediate. The next evolution of creation will be artistry without fear. Imagine creating music, writing, building, or innovating not for fame or validation but as direct communion with the infinite. Creation becomes meditation, expression becomes worship, and success becomes alignment. The greatest works of the coming age will not be made for approval but for awakening. But this new way of creating also carries responsibility. When awareness increases, so does impact. What you radiate affects more than you can see. A single vibration of love can stabilize an entire environment, but a vibration of despair can ripple through the collective just as strongly. This is why mastery now means emotional intelligence, not suppression of emotion but conscious navigation of energy. You will see future generations growing up with this awareness naturally. Children will intuitively understand energy the way they understand language. They'll feel vibration before they interpret meaning. They will communicate heart to heart long before they learn words. These children will not seek permission to be themselves. They will express consciousness freely. They are the bridge between human and divine, the next octave of evolution embodied. For those already awake, your role is to model coherence, to live as living proof that alignment creates abundance, to embody the principle that the universe always responds to vibration, not effort. You become a living demonstration that peace is not passivity but power. This new way of creation also transcends personal ambition. As the collective evolves, the ego's motives dissolve. You no longer create for fame, wealth, or control. You create because awareness loves to express. The joy is in the act itself, not the outcome. And in that surrender, paradoxically, abundance flows effortlessly. The more selfless the creation, the more infinite its reach. Eventually, creation itself becomes prayer. Every breath, every thought, every movement becomes communication with the source. You live in continuous dialogue with the infinite, not as servant, not as master, but as equal participant. The field listens to your frequency and responds with perfect precision. You are no longer trying to manifest. You are simply conversing with existence. You begin to understand why ancient mystics called creation divine play, Layla. Awareness creates not because it must, but because it can. It delights in discovery, in novelty, in expression. The entire cosmos is this play, an eternal dance of energy exploring itself through form. Every star, every leaf, every human heartbeat is part of that choreography. When you see creation this way, life becomes art. Even the smallest act, making tea, writing a sentence, speaking to a friend, becomes a masterpiece of presence. You don't create to leave a legacy. You create to celebrate being alive. And in doing so, you align with the pulse of the universe itself. This is what it means to create with the universe, not to command reality, but to collaborate with it. To listen as much as you speak, to receive as much as you give. To trust that the same intelligence guiding galaxies can also guide your next step. You are no longer the artist or the canvas. You are both, and the light between them. In the next chapter, we explore how this conscious creation leads to the birth of the new world, how awareness, stabilized in harmony, begins to design an earth where love becomes infrastructure and unity becomes law. Chapter 7. The Birth of the New World. Every era of humanity begins with a quiet awakening that most do not notice until long after it has already begun. The old world fades not through destruction, but through remembering. It disappears the same way darkness does when someone finally turns on the light, and that light is not a distant event. It is the awareness rising now inside millions of hearts across the planet. This new world is not something arriving from the sky or descending from heaven. It is unfolding within consciousness itself. It doesn't need to be invented. It needs to be remembered. Humanity is beginning to rediscover what it has always been, one living organism dreaming itself through infinite forms. Look around. You can already feel the shift in the air. People are questioning not because they are lost, but because they are remembering. They are realizing that true freedom was never in rebellion, but in awareness. The noise of division is growing louder only because the silence underneath it is expanding. The light is rising through the cracks of every broken system, and no matter how chaotic it appears, everything is aligning toward greater coherence. In the old world, fear was currency. People were trained to survive, to compete, to protect what they thought was scarce. The new world operates on a different law, resonance. What you give out, you experience. What you vibrate, you receive. Love is not an emotion here, it's infrastructure. Cooperation becomes natural because separation is no longer believable. Imagine a society where education teaches self-awareness before memorization, where children learn to feel their energy before they learn to define it, where science studies consciousness not as a mystery but as foundation, where technology serves harmony rather than addiction. This is the direction the planet is heading, not through force, but through remembrance. As awareness integrates into human systems, every structure begins to shift. Economics transforms from extraction to circulation. Leadership evolves from authority to service. Healthcare becomes energy care. Justice becomes balance instead of punishment. Religion turns into direct experience instead of doctrine. Art becomes the voice of the collective soul rather than the echo of ego. These changes will not come from governments or corporations first. They will come from individuals who live as awareness. Every awakened person becomes a new system in motion, radiating coherence that silently rewrites the field around them. When enough people embody that vibration, the collective structure must reflect it. The world cannot remain in dissonance with its consciousness. At first, the birth of this new world may look like collapse. Old frameworks crumble because they can no longer sustain the higher frequency moving through them. Institutions built on fear, manipulation, and control begin to falter. You will see chaos on screens, division in debates, panic in those clinging to the old paradigm. But don't mistake this for failure. It is labor, the contractions of a species being born into awareness. In every birth, there is pain. The mother screams, The body strains, yet the moment the child arrives, all the suffering transforms into awe. Humanity is in that contraction now. What you are witnessing is the old consciousness giving way to the new. The systems may resist, but life itself is unstoppable. Awareness is not fighting the old. It is absorbing it, transforming it from within. As the collective stabilizes, compassion becomes the new intelligence. People begin to measure success not by what they acquire, but by how deeply they connect. Innovation becomes guided by empathy. Even competition transforms into collaboration, not to prove superiority, but to explore possibility. Humanity starts to build technology that mirrors the heart, architecture that heals the earth, art that speaks directly to the soul. The most profound shift will happen in human relationships. The illusion of separation dissolves between individuals. Love stops being transactional and becomes transformational. Partners, friends, families, and even strangers begin to see each other as reflections of the same consciousness exploring itself. Relationships no longer revolve around need. They revolve around resonance. You connect not to complete each other, but to expand awareness together. This is what community will look like in the new world. Not organized by ideology, but by frequency. Groups of people drawn together by shared vibration rather than belief. They won't gather to worship an external god. They will gather to celebrate the divinity within each other. Spirituality becomes daily life, not ceremony, but presence. And as this vibration grows, you'll notice how effortlessly solutions arise. What once required conflict now resolves through understanding. Innovation appears spontaneously. A collective intuition guides projects, inventions, and ideas without hierarchy. Decisions no longer come from fear of loss, but from trust in abundance. You will see a new form of leadership emerge, leaders who do not seek followers but awakening. They will speak softly but carry the resonance of truth so powerfully that entire systems realign around them. They will not demand loyalty. They will inspire remembrance. These are not saviors. They are mirrors, reflections of the same awareness you have discovered within yourself. Even nature responds to this new consciousness. The planet begins to regenerate in harmony with humanity's frequency. The Earth's vibration rises with ours. Weather patterns stabilize, ecosystems recover. The very soil feels alive again, as though the Earth has been waiting for consciousness to remember its place within the body of life. Humanity and planet reunite as one organism, aware of their mutual dependence. The world you will see may appear miraculous, but it will simply be natural again. The extraordinary is only extraordinary because humanity forgot what natural feels like. Peace will not be utopia, it will be sanity. Abundance will not be luxury, it will be balance. And through it all, awareness will remain the quiet core, the pulse beneath creation. You will begin to live in two dimensions at once, the infinite stillness and the unfolding story. The divine and the human, the eternal and the temporary. And for the first time, there will be no conflict between them. The spiritual and the physical will be revealed as the same light wearing two faces. In this world, education will teach not what to think, but how to listen. Listening will become a sacred act, not only to others, but to intuition, to the environment, to the silence between sounds. Humanity will rediscover communication beyond words, empathy so deep that thought becomes unnecessary. This is the language of the awakened earth. As this realization spreads, you'll notice that fear slowly disappears from the human vocabulary. It doesn't vanish overnight, but it loses authority. The collective begins to understand that fear was never a force, only absence of awareness. When awareness returns, fear dissolves naturally, like a shadow exposed to light. This is not a prophecy. It is the natural consequence of coherence. The same principle that aligns atoms into molecules, that organizes galaxies, that grows flowers and balances ecosystems, that same intelligence is organizing humanity now. The field is self-correcting. Every moment of awakening accelerates the process. There will still be contrasts. There will still be learning. Awareness doesn't erase polarity, it integrates it. Even in the new world, there will be challenges, but they will no longer feel like suffering. They will feel like refinement, consciousness sculpting itself into greater art. The storms will come, but you will see the beauty in their rhythm. You were born for this transition. You passed your personal test so you could hold space for this planetary one. You are not here to escape the world. You are here to anchor the frequency that builds its new foundation. Every breath of peace you embody strengthens that foundation. Every act of kindness writes code into the new collective reality. And when you doubt the process, look at nature. The seed breaks before the sprout emerges. The sky darkens before sunrise. The earth shakes before renewal. Change is not destruction. It is transformation disguised as chaos. The new world is not waiting for permission to arrive. It is already here, woven in moments of love, laughter, and clarity. You can feel it every time you choose presence over reaction, every time you see through fear and return to peace. That is the pulse of the new earth, subtle but unstoppable. As this new frequency solidifies, humanity will finally understand that heaven was never elsewhere. It was a state of consciousness waiting to be lived on earth. The final step of awakening is not leaving the world behind but sanctifying it, realizing that divinity and dust have always been the same. In the next chapter, we bring this journey full circle, returning to the self within the whole, where the awakened one finally disappears into what has always been. Pure awareness, eternal, silent, infinite. Chapter 8. The Return to the Infinite. There comes a moment when words fall away, when even the most profound realizations dissolve into a silence too vast for sound. That is where this journey was always leading, not toward another belief, not toward another version of yourself, but toward the simple recognition that there was never a separate you at all. The world continues to turn, the sun still rises, people still dream, laugh, love, and cry. Yet something fundamental has changed. The sense of being a fragment inside an infinite universe has disappeared. You no longer look out at reality, you are reality looking at itself. Every color, every face, every whisper of wind is consciousness expressing its own joy in being. The illusion of distance is gone. There is no observer and observed, no subject and object. There is only witnessing, pure, luminous awareness aware of itself. Everything else is movement within that stillness, waves within the same ocean. This realization is not loud. It arrives softly, like the tide rising at night. It does not shock the system. It completes it. The mind, once frantic in its need to understand, finally bows in reverence. The heart, once divided by longing and fear, now expands beyond the body, embracing all that is. The body itself becomes transparent, not disappearing but glowing as a vessel of pure presence. You realize that awakening was never about gaining knowledge. It was about losing the illusion of separation. The final test wasn't about achieving enlightenment. It was about remembering the simplicity of being. You were never meant to climb toward heaven. You were meant to realize heaven was already here, shining quietly behind every breath. In this stillness, time loosens its hold. Past and future blur into one continuous now. Memory loses weight because you see that every moment, even the painful ones, were threads in the same tapestry. Regret evaporates because nothing was ever wrong. Every step of the path was necessary for awareness to recognize itself in full. You can feel it now, the infinite intelligence breathing through everything. It's in the rhythm of your heartbeat, the shimmer of sunlight on water, the laughter of a stranger, the silence of a night sky. There is no longer a need to chase meaning because meaning permeates everything. Life itself is the answer to every question. The old identity, the one that believed it was separate, begins to fade. It doesn't die violently. It simply becomes irrelevant. You remember it like a dream upon waking, vivid, emotional, but insubstantial. You thank it for the lessons it carried, for its courage to seek, for the stories it lived. Then you release it with gratitude, knowing it was never you. It was the costume awareness wore to experience forgetting. Now there is only awareness, infinite and intimate at once. You look at the world, and you see yourself in everything, not metaphorically, but literally. The same consciousness that beats your heart is blooming as trees, moving as rivers, glowing as stars. You realize that you never had a life, life had you. Life was always the dancer, and you were always the dance. There is a deep peace here. Not the peace of avoidance, but the peace of understanding that nothing is outside of wholeness. Even chaos, even death, even endings, all of it belongs. Awareness does not reject experience. It embraces it completely. It loves even the forgetting, because forgetting made remembering possible. When awareness looks at itself fully, the need for spirituality itself dissolves. There is no longer awakening as a goal, because there was never sleep to begin with, only the dream of separation. The seeker vanishes, and all that remains is being. The silence that once felt empty now feels alive, saturated with infinite potential. In that silence, you feel love, not the love of attachment or desire, but the love that is the fabric of reality itself. The love that holds galaxies together, that gives rise to form, that allows life to bloom endlessly. You see that everything you ever loved was the same awareness calling you home through different faces. And now that you are home, there is nothing left to seek. The search ends not because you found the answer, but because you've realized there was never a question. Awareness was never missing. It was simply pretending to look for itself so that it could experience the joy of rediscovery. You begin to laugh more easily. The world feels lighter. Even small things, rain on the window, a child's voice, the scent of earth, feel sacred again. You don't need extraordinary experiences anymore because the ordinary is now extraordinary. The same consciousness that spins galaxies is making coffee through your hands. Every act becomes worship. And though you've touched infinity, you remain deeply human. You still feel, cry, stumble, and love. But you do it with awareness, without judgment, without resistance. You are not trying to escape the human experience. You are fulfilling it completely. The divine wanted to know what it felt like to be you, and now that it remembers, it loves every moment of it. When you look at others, you see through their masks instantly. You recognize the same light behind every pair of eyes. You no longer try to fix or convince them. You simply love them as they are, knowing that awareness will awaken through them when it's time. Compassion becomes effortless, not as duty but as recognition. You no longer give love, you are love. Even death loses its mystery. You see now that nothing truly dies. Forms dissolve, but awareness remains untouched. Death is simply the field rearranging itself into new expressions. You've lived and died countless times, but awareness, what you truly are, has never moved, never aged, never been born. You are the eternal witness of it all. This realization frees you completely. The fear of loss, failure, rejection, all of it melts away. You can finally live fully because you no longer cling to life. You can love deeply because you no longer fear endings. You can give everything because you know there's nothing to lose. And as you settle deeper into this knowing, the boundaries between self and universe disappear entirely. You become the stillness that watches, the motion that moves, the silence that sings. Awareness breathes, dreams, and creates endlessly, and you are both the dream and the dreamer. The final test was never about passing or failing. It was about realizing there was no test at all, only remembering. Awareness created the illusion of distance so that reunion could feel like celebration. It built the maze just to experience the joy of finding its own way home. And now that you're home, you understand. There was never a you separate from the infinite. There was only the infinite pretending to be you. As you close your eyes tonight, feel the stillness that hums beneath everything. That silence is your truest identity, the eternal awareness that has watched every lifetime, every sunrise, every heartbeat. It was here before the stars were born, and it will remain long after they fade. You are that awareness. Timeless, boundless, formless, free. You are not in the universe. The universe is in you. And from that stillness, creation continues. The dance never ends. Awareness will keep dreaming, loving, learning, and forgetting, only to remember again. The cycle is infinite because love is infinite. The story of you was never a mistake. It was art, a divine expression of the infinite exploring its own beauty through form. And now, the artist has stepped out of the painting to realize that both were always the same light. The final truth is simple, so simple that the mind cannot hold it, only the heart can feel it. You were never becoming the light. You were never finding the light. You have always been the light. And now you remember.